Rejection stings, and not just in the moment. It lingers, it echoes, it loops back at 2 a.m. in the morning. It rewrites our memories and buries itself inside the way we speak and the way we love, the way we leave or stay. And most of all, it confuses our identity, because we weren't just rejected. We were told a story about why we got rejected. And that story usually says things like, you weren't enough, or you were too much, or you're not lovable, or you're replaceable, or you don't belong here, or you shouldn't have even tried, or you should have been better, you should have known better. And I mean, these stories, they often had nothing to do with what actually happened. This is Uber Bintegers, where integrity is lived and intimacy is felt. So let's tell the truth about rejection, because some of the deepest wounds that we carry weren't just about the moments that we were dismissed or excluded. They were more so about the meaning that we made out of those moments. Because when someone leaves, when someone ignores us, when someone fires us, when someone ghosts us or breaks up with us or unfriends us or walks away from our company, we almost never say things like, I guess that was their limitation, or I guess they were just not ready, or I guess they didn't know how to love. No, we don't say those things. We more often say things like, what did I do wrong? Or why wasn't I enough? Why, like maybe I was too intense. Maybe I was too real. Maybe I was not attractive enough, or smart enough, or funny enough, or successful enough, or obedient enough, or flexible enough. Choose your option. Or we'll say things like, did I maybe ask for too much? Should I have maybe waited longer? Or why do I always seem to mess this up? We make their absence our indictment. We make their decision our diagnosis. But here's what most of us were never taught. We were never taught that rejection is not a reliable mirror. It reflects other people's stories and other people's fears and other people's bandwidth, maybe other people's trauma or other people's values, other people's wounds perhaps, but and I mean, sure, like sometimes rejection may contain feedback, right? Sometimes it could tell us something helpful. Sometimes maybe we do need to examine our behavior in the midst of rejection. Sometimes we were probably just misaligned or unready or operating from our own wounds. But even then, it does not mean that we're unworthy. Even when we fall, or fail, or fumble, or forget, we're not less worthy, because worth is not revoked by disappointments. Let that land. Worth is not revoked by disappointments. But so many of us internalize rejection as a confirmation of our worst fears, that we're inherently flawed, that we're unlovable, that we're destined to be alone, that we'll never get it right, that we're too different, that we're too emotional, that we're too something. But what if the rejection was never about your worth? What if the rejection was more about their fear of intimacy, perhaps, or their discomfort with honesty, or their own shame? What if their rejection was more about their emotional unavailability, or their need for control, perhaps, or their narrow preferences that they had, their internalized biases, their unhealed history? What if your full self simply didn't fit inside their small container? See, that doesn't mean you're defective. That just means you're expensive. You're expansive, and people don't fit in expansive zones at times. Let's be real. Some people are drawn to what you represent, but not necessarily ready to hold who you truly are. Some people may love the version of you that they imagined, but not the real one. Some people may connect with your energy, but not with your depth. Some people may want your light, but not your boundaries. Some people may want to be inspired by you, but not really inconvenienced by you. And that's not your fault. See, their inability to receive you does not cancel your right to exist fully. So let's maybe return to integrity and intimacy at this moment here. See, integrity would say, I refuse to contort myself to remain accepted. And intimacy would say, I'll risk being seen even if it means I'm not going to be chosen. And both of those require us to decouple our worth from the outcome. Because, let's be honest, sometimes we don't get closure. Sometimes we don't get the explanation. Sometimes people in our lives just disappear without a trace. Sometimes the rejection is messy or unjustified or even cruel. And then we're left with this pain of what didn't actually get to be said. And that silence can become this kind of a vacuum. And that vacuum will fill itself with shame unless we tell ourselves the truth. That their rejection is not our story. Their inability to love us is not proof that we're unlovable. That their departure is not evidence that we were too much. That their silence is not a verdict. Their ghosting is not our identity. See, we're not insane. We're not too intense. We're not a mistake. We're not unworthy. We're not broken. All we are, though, is we're human. And humans, we long for connection. And when that connection is lost, we grieve. And that grief deserves compassion, not self-blame. So let's say this directly, shall we? Rejection hurts, but it's not the measure of your worth. It's the measure of compatibility, timing, capacity, mutual readiness, shared values, emotional maturity, and sometimes just pure chance. So let's stop asking, why wasn't I enough for them? And instead, let's start asking, why did I believe that my enoughness depended on them in the first place? This is the rupture point. This is the moment where we stop chasing approval and we start reclaiming our grounded belonging. See, we can want to be loved without making someone's no our shame. We can actually, we can want connection without tying our value to it. And we can receive rejection without rewriting our identity around it. This is hard work. This takes practice. It takes unlearning. It takes grieving the versions of us who spent so long just wanting to be picked. But the freedom on the other side, it's real. Because when rejection no longer defines you, it's then that you become unshakable. It's not because you stop feeling, but because you stop collapsing every time someone walks away. You don't shrink, you don't chase, you don't contort, you don't beg, you don't try to prove yourself. You just stay anchored in your worthwhileness. And when you stay anchored, you begin to attract people who will meet you there. Not people who need you to audition, but people who see your worth already. Tomorrow I'm going to take this even deeper, where we're going to unpack confusion between attraction and validation, and why being wanted is not the same thing as being seen. But for this moment today, as you're listening, let's together give ourselves permission to reframe rejection. It may have interrupted our hope, but it didn't define our worth. See, we're still here. We're still whole. We're still lovable, even if they never saw it, because we see it now. And that changes everything. Thanks for watching, my dear listener. I'll see you in tomorrow's episode.